Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Sunday talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I am one of your we changed it, right? I am your host, Noor Kyle.
And I am your loyal sidekick, Mushtaq Ali.
Yes. And whether you're here live or watching on the replay, thank you for joining us. It's wonderful to have you here again with us. And for those of you who are celebrating Eid, either now or will be doing so tomorrow, Eid Mubarak. Hope you have a wonderful celebration. Make the most of it. Have a wonderful time. Not every day needs to be miserable and sad. You're allowed to have good times too. So enjoy. Other than that, we can do a little bit of a YouTube spiel in which I let you know that if you enjoy the work that we do, we have multiple ways that you can support us. Some are as simple as subscribing to our channel, liking this video if you enjoy it, leaving a comment, dialoguing with other people in the comments, say nice things, be helpful, answer questions if you have some ideas that might help others. And you can donate to our channel, of course. I haven't mentioned that so much lately, but that is an important way you can help us out. And you can do that via PayPal or Stripe. And we also have Coffee in case you might like to do recurring donations on a monthly basis to show your support. You'll find links to those below, of course, along with the link to our Facebook group and Facebook page where you can engage with us and many of the people that you're seeing here live. And you can stay in contact with us via email. I keep meaning to create kind of a newsletter situation that will go out monthly or every other month. Still looking forward to doing that. We're getting settled back in after our travels last month. Those were very important. I also had my training going on. That's done. I'll have my exam coming up. So I'm well prepared to dive into a new project like a newsletter. Also, if you'd like to do one-on-ones or two-on-ones with us, you can email us for that. We'll have an easy link to send you at that point, and you can sign yourself right up with all the details you'll need to know how it works. And we would love to work with you if you'd like some support on your path to being awake more of the time, right? That's what we're all trying to do here. Other than that, I think that's the most important stuff. Explore our description, you'll find cool things there. But with no further ado, let's get to our topic this evening. We are talking about something that shows up both in the Gurdjieff work, of course, the fourth way work, and in Sufism, traditionally speaking. In that is attention. It is an utterly necessary component to the work that we do, whether you frame it as a Sufi thing, as a fourth way thing, or some other permutation thereof. You cannot get around needing to build up this necessary skill. So, where should we start, Mushtaq?
Well, let me see. Let's start with understanding what attention is.
Very good.
You can define attention as the concentration of awareness, on some phenomena to the exclusion of sometimes a lot of other stimuli, or if not the exclusion, to the lowering of attention on those stimuli. So, good old Mr. G breaks down attention into three varieties or qualities. The most prevalent is the mechanical attention with no real will of its own. This is what we see in the world most of the time. You're walking down the street and whatever draws your attention, holds it for a few moments, and then your attention is on to the next thing. Your attention will be drawn to some things and ignore others in a fairly mechanical way.
Yeah, so
For instance, if you grew up where I grew up and you saw a police car, your attention would directly go to that. And you would forget about everything else, including the mountain lion in the tree, because the police car contains more dangerous things.
yeah. Another manifestation of it, at least moment to moment, might be shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
Ooh, shiny. Ooh, shiny. Ooh, shiny.
Squirrel.
Squirrel.
Yep.
Yes.
So that's mechanical attention. And it's barely attention at all. So occasionally, an attractor like that has sufficient gravity that uh, it engages your interest emotionally. We are caught or riveted or held by our interest for a longer period of time, and sometimes even against our will. This is a focused attention out of the ordinary, but it is still fundamentally mechanical. So you're walking down the street and you see somebody who strikes you as incredibly beautiful, and that rivets your attention for some time. Or you see a car crash coming on, you see two cars and they're bound to hit each other, and you just can't look away. Um, Things like that. You can experience this going to the movies, reading a book, uh,
Watching the news.
watching the news. Yes. So the thing about this attention is that it has a more um, it has a fascination for you with whatever the attractor is. And that's not predetermined ahead of time or held in place, and definitely not by one's own will. Now, the most rare type of attention is that which is directed by one's own decision prior to contact with the object of attention. You choose to attend to something. And we're going to get into that and how to use that in a little bit, because the thrust of this talk this evening, more than anything else, is how can you develop your attention? And what do you do with it? Especially this third kind of attention, it's like muscles. You have to build them up, and you have to build them up over time. If you walked out into your gym and you tried to pick up two 90-kilo kettlebells, you would probably fail and you might hurt yourself. You likely hurt yourself. I had a chance to lift a 90-kilo kettlebell off the floor when I was in Dubai. I got it probably a good, easy 3 millimeters. I was very proud of myself. So you don't start with the heavy stuff. You start lighter, you work your way up. You train your attention as if you were training your muscles for an event. And the event is called life. So does that make sense so far? Is everybody
Mhm.
comfortable enough with this?
So James, yeah, I think people are okay.
Nobody wants to argue?
The floor is open.
Floor is open.
Okay, I'll
Yes,
throw
you
in a random but interesting fact just for the sake of saying something.
sure.
Um, the fundamental paper that gave rise to the technology underlying large language models is called Attention is All You Need.
Mm.
Random but interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to ask Palin if she has a copy of that.
You can
That
find it
would,
online, just search
yeah,
for it.
yeah, it definitely sounds like it's worth checking out. So here's an interesting thing. People experience, I've stolen this term from somebody else, but I like it a lot. Attentional blinks. Let's say you're walking down the street and you've decided to pay attention to your breath while you're walking. And you notice after a while that you have not been paying attention to your breath in one long attentional phase, but there have been several blinks in that attention, lasting sometimes for a second, sometimes for several seconds, sometimes for a couple of minutes before you bring yourself back to your breath. These blinks are sort of um, the enemy of attention. It is your mechanical attention trying to exert itself.
Reassert itself out there. Yep. So these attentional blinks, yeah.
So,
I have question.
yes,
So this mechanical attention does not use the same muscle as the intentional attention.
no. You can think
Okay.
of mechanical attention as the body that does not exercise. So you have whatever tone you have from just the things you do during your day, walking across the room, occasionally walking to the store or whatever, but nothing more than that.
Um, I think there's an analogy here with breath
Oh,
be
yes, there is.
because basic breathing is instinctive, but when you do conscious breathing, something else comes into play. And I think it's exactly the same.
Yep, I would say you are correct. So, one of the things that you need in order to train your attention, speaking of what Ian was speaking of, is what uh, a central focal point, like a home base, as it were. And we are of the opinion that the best home base is the breath because it's always with you. Some people say use a mantra, but a mantra is only good if you're chanting it. And sometimes not then, because mantras are a great way to go into a trance and completely lose your attention. So the breath is the ultimate home base. Hold on to that thought for a second, and we will come back to it. Now, the other thing that you can use to develop attention is you can learn to, I mean, Gurdjieff talked about dividing your attention, but it's not really dividing. Not in the sense of I'm going to take one piece of attention and put it over here and the other piece of attention and put it over there. It's not that. What he calls divided attention is being able to open your attentional focus enough to have it focused on what might be seen as more than one thing, even though it is all part of the same whole. So if I'm sitting here and I'm focusing on my breath, I can also be focusing on the temperature in the room as I perceive it through my skin, both my skin that is open to the atmosphere and my skin that is covered with clothes. I can perceive my temperature while being aware of my breath. That is a splitting of attention. Though, as you can see, it's not really splitting, it's including. And the best way to do this is using all three centers, as Gurdjieff would say. You use your first center to observe sensation. So this is your what I usually call the instinctual center, but you're most interested in the sensation part of that. And we're going to get into that in a moment too. You can use your heart center and notice how you feel at any given moment without making comment on it, just noticing. You can use your head center by noticing where your attention is. So I can split my attention that way. Or you can split your attention through senses, which is actually my preferred method of doing this. I can see what's in the room. I can feel my breath. I can feel the room in the sense of sensation. This has nothing to do with emotion. I can notice where my attention is. I can pay attention to my attention. And that gets us to the ultimate thing to do with this is you flip your attention around and you stare at yourself being attentive. It's called reflexive awareness, turning your attention back on your attention.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things can be done.
So is that stepping you into a bit of self-remembering as well?
Almost.
Mm.
It's almost getting into self-remembering.
Yep.
But that gets us into why would we want to develop our attention? And the answer is without that third kind of attention that Gurdjieff talks about, you cannot successfully do self-observation. And without self-observation, the rest of it kind of falls apart.
Mm.
Make sense so far?
Any questions so far? All right. Don't worry, I'll take care of
I
that.
already got it.
Okay.
So questions so far, are we making sense?
Yep.
So the ultimate form of split attention is to look outwardly and inwardly at the same time. And just bear that in mind as we come back to this over and over again. So one of the things that we want to do is to train ourselves to reduce attentional blinks. You're never going to get rid of them. They aren't going to go away forever, as far as I know. After years of practicing this, I still get the occasional attentional blink, and I don't expect to not. But the only positive thing I can say is that they are fewer and fewer than they used to be, and they are of brief duration, which is what you want, briefer and briefer duration. So how do we learn to do this? If you really want to do this, it is useful to devote approximately 20 minutes a day to this practice. If that seems excessive, start with 10. If 10 seems excessive, start with 5. If 5 seems excessive, start with 2 and work your way up. But if you're working your way up, the ideal is to work your way up to 20 minutes a day. Doesn't need to be any more than that. Can be less. I mean, you could do it all day if you want, but 20 minutes is enough for you. So the first part of this exercise is to be able to focus your attention inwardly. And the way you do that, and you can all do this now as we talk, if you'd like. And I will do my best to keep you from going into trance. What you want is to have a place where you will not be disturbed. Sit comfortably, preferably with your back pretty much erect and with the ability to let your bones stack on top of each other. Don't slump. Listen to your mother, sit up straight. Now, you're not going to put your mind on any specific state or direction. This is not about achieving mental states. The first thing you do is you bring your attention to your breath. And by that, I mean just notice the sensation of breathing. Breathing in, breathing out. That's all you need to notice. Spend a minute or two just doing that, attention on breath. Then pay attention to how your body feels from the inside, not the outside. Keep with the breath. Notice yourself breathing. You might notice the points of contact between you and whatever you're sitting on. Chair, floor, pillow, hammock, doesn't matter. Notice where you have the contact and stay in your breath. And you can have your eyes closed for this. Most people do. Notice where clothing contacts your skin because your nerves are telling you about that all the time. And then notice any bodily sensations that you can become aware of. If your mind wanders, if you have an attentional blink, just bring yourself back gently without any judgment on yourself because you're not going to be able to do this nonstop. Your attention will break away and it's your job to notice it and bring it back. Stay in your breath. Use that to bring yourself back in. Notice your breath in every moment that you can. And then you continue this practice for up to 20 minutes. And I will tell you in no uncertain terms that even a single session of you doing this is going to have an interesting and positive effect on you. Those of you who have read at least some Gurdjieff know that he used a body scan exercise to do this sort of thing. This is more free form than a body scan exercise. I have personally always been slightly annoyed when people say, well, okay, feel your right foot. Now feel your left foot, and so on and so forth. Just feel your body. You have a body. You have the sensation of being a body. Just notice that, just like you have the sensation of breathing. Just notice. Don't chant nothing. Don't make no prayers. Don't do nothing but sit and notice. Sit and pay attention. Does this make sense? Can everybody do this with minimal difficulty? Did anybody have a hard time doing this? If you did, it's probably because I was yammering on at you the whole time. Nope. Okay. Where was I? Oh, yes. So, what do you notice about this? I give you a hint. You have to have more than attention. Attention is actually the third thing that you get. Yes, James.
Well, the obvious thing is getting distracted by thoughts. Um, just, the brain spits thoughts out like the stomach spits out bile. It just happens. And not fusing with them, returning to the awareness. That's
Yeah.
the most obvious thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And part of the challenge of the practice like this is to resist the meaning making tendency that happens. Like, oh, my hand is being twitchy. That must mean blah, blah, blah. And then you
Yeah.
get taken down a rabbit hole of
Yes.
interpreting your experience.
Hmm.
That is what we are giving ourselves an opportunity to vacation from with a practice like this. Except I think many of us, like being workaholics, find it hard to take that vacation. But it's important if we are going to do this kind of thing to get some practice in taking that vacation. Thanks, James. Ian.
Yeah, I was finding it when Mustak asked what do you feel about this? I was finding it hard to find a word for it, but I think the closest I can get is feelings of peace and tranquility.
I'll take that. Peace and tranquility are good.
All right.
And it should produce something along those lines. Okay, so in order, oh, right, Ian had it. Sorry, never mind. Ian said, was that all you had to say, Ian? Okay, I guess
Things
it
like
was.
that.
Yeah, it didn't automatically lower it like it normally does.
Yeah, no worries.
So What is the first thing you need within yourself to do this exercise?
Intention.
Even before that,
Well, the intention to do it in the first
even
place.
before that,
A wish.
not a wish, but you're getting closer. What wishes? You must be present. You have to be in a state of presence, not a state of absence, before anything else. Presence is, are you awake now? Are you in the room and awake? Can you see yourself being here? Can you feel yourself being here? That. Without that, nothing else happens. First thing. Second thing is intention, because this must be done intentionally. So a conscious wish, which is what an intention is. So you can do this formally. You can sit and go, okay, I'm here. I'm awake. I'm present. I'm in the room. I am in this present moment. My intention is to do this exercise. My intention is to take my attention and put it on my breath to start, and then put it in my body, and then spend 20 minutes just experiencing this within my body while being present, while doing this in an intentional manner, not a mechanical manner. Those three things, you must have all three of them. And we've talked about this numerous times, the idea of attention, intention, and presence being the only thing that you really have. Everything else can be taken away from you, but you get to keep these three things or these three actions because they aren't things. You can't like put it in a wheelbarrow and roll it around your front yard. Intention, attention, and presence are verbs, not nouns, even though in English we use them as nouns. So, what is a verb? A verb is an action. It's a doing. Throw is a verb. Hold is a verb. Ball is a noun. Does that make sense? Is this too simple for you guys? You guys are pretty well evolved with this.
I think focusing on the basics is perpetual. I mean, kind of always returning to them. You can, to be able to do that, it is basic, yeah, but it's always worth clarifying and re-clarifying.
And the other thing is, are we actually doing the basics, right? Everybody wants the fancy, cool, mystical things, but they forget this is the underpinnings of everything else. And everybody loves to skip the beginner stuff and go straight to the goodies. Because frankly, they think they're too good for the basics. They know better. We're all doing the basics.
Yeah. And back in the day, when I was coming up, when I was a young dervish coming up, if you couldn't spend 20 minutes in focused remembrance, which is kind of what you're doing with this, then you were not going to be given anything besides this. How can you be given the good stuff when you can't do the basic stuff?
Which is not to say that the basic stuff is not the good stuff, but what you mean, Mushtaq, is that people assume the magic is in the complicated.
Yeah, and the magic is literally in the attention. So, doing this is going to have some very, very positive effects on you. You're going to probably do some rewiring of your attentional circuitry, making it more focused. It's going to have significant effects on you from doing that, and those effects are going to be long lasting to permanent. One of the main things you're going to get is a deeper, more penetrating attention. And if you suffer from things like ADHD, this is great for you. Probably maddening for the first 6 weeks, but still great. And you're going to have a significant reduction in attentional blinks. And I mean, people say that doing stuff like this will help with age-related cognitive decline and other things like this. I don't know. Um, it seems near-fetched. And it's worth doing when you know that this is the first step. Mustakim, what do you have to say?
Yeah. Yes. Is there any sign that we can see on other people that this person has a strong attention?
Only if you yourself have a strong attention. If
No,
you don't have a strong attention, you will not see it in others.
I was thinking that not to be fell into trick by some fake gurus that
Yeah,
offer so you can like
yeah. There's
yeah.
this weird rule that says you cannot perceive the state of anybody whose state is above yours. I don't know what above actually means, but I know that this is true. And it's like that with this. If you have very little attention, you are not going to notice the person with a lot of attention. You might find them annoying, but that's about it.
Why annoying?
Or intense, maybe.
Annoying because you can feel the weight of their attention on you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that can really trigger people. Think about this. You're walking down the street and there's somebody who's looking at you as you walk. 99 times out of 100, if you notice this, you're going to have a moment of tension in yourself, of anxiety. Somebody is observing me. Right? Probably everybody here has experienced that. And so what do you do?
Well, you initially interpret it as a threat or a challenge.
Yeah, you won't even interpret it as a threat or challenge. You will react to it as a threat or challenge. This happens below the level of consciousness. And the question is, can you inhibit that initial reaction well enough to determine what's really going on? And this is a pure primate reaction. If you look at people on the street experiencing being looked at, clearly being looked at or photographed, they will have the same reaction as if you go to the zoo and stare at a silverback gorilla or a chimpanzee. You will see exactly the same behavior. Threat displays, puffing yourself up, charging at the individual, encroaching on their space, pounding your chest, all of that kind of stuff. Humans do all of this in a slightly different way.
Yeah, I was thinking that basically we sort of interpret that kind of intense attention as being a potential predator.
Yeah, that's what your genes are programmed to tell you. There is no doubt about that. The question is, can you evaluate whether or not that is the case? And in order to do that, you have to be outside of a level of reaction. Otherwise, you're liable to make a stupid move.
Well, interestingly, this practice helps pave the way for that, doesn't
Yep,
it?
because you have two things. If it isn't a threat and you deal with it as if it were a threat, you're going to get in trouble. And if it is a threat and you deal with it as if it were not a threat, you're going to get in trouble. You have to be able to choose correctly and respond appropriately. Make sense?
Yep.
One of the things I noticed when doing a lot of, well, being in unpleasant situations was that,
Speak up a little bit, Todd.
uh, is that
Sorry.
is that better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. One of the things I noticed when my life was in a somewhat more dangerous place, and permanently afterwards, is there are times when I would get up, leave a place, um, or drive into the parking lot, turn around, and drive out without consciously knowing why at the time, but afterwards the pieces came together. That there was a threat there, but the conscious, the talking part of the mind was the last one to be included in the conversation. The threat assessment part was doing its job um, without the talking part being involved.
Yep, that happens.
Amazing PTSD powers.
Yeah, in cases like that, sometimes you need to know how to turn them off.
Well, in the last case, I went by a Starbucks and asked a couple of cops who were drinking ridiculous amounts of coffee about the place, and they said, "Oh, we don't go in there in groups of less than three."
Mhm.
I don't, at the time I didn't know why, just that.
Yeah,
Here to
that's
tell a
Portland for
tale.
you.
Thanks God. Yeah. Thanks, Todd.
Amelia, what do you got to say?
Yeah, there was a lot of you're describing like people paying attention to you and being able to like sense that and assessing it. And I noticed that there's a certain point in my life where that kind of circuitry in my brain kind of just completely changed. And that's when I started to present as more feminine in public and wear a lot of makeup. And I noticed that the behavior of everybody around me kind of changed whenever I was wearing a lot of makeup. And it kind of just like unlocked a different level of like perception of other people's attention for me, I'd say.
I could see how that would be the case. And being as it could be dangerous to you, it makes total sense that your mind would just turn the volume up on that.
Yeah, and it's gotten to a point where I'll notice like if I look at somebody like if and I have a lot of makeup on and I did a good job, it can kind of they'll avoid looking at me.
Yeah, that's oftentimes a response. Avoid looking at you,
Mhm.
move to someplace else. But then there is always that one asshole who swells up their chest and pounds it at you.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. Hopefully there's not too many of those around, but even in California.
People tell me I scare those kinds of people.
Yeah, well, exactly right. That's why you get that response. A threat display is somebody feeling intimidated. A gorilla who is feeling completely confident in themselves and they know that they're the silverback, they don't do any threat displays. When they see somebody that they think is challenging them, they feel fear and intimidation, and then they do their threat display because that's what works for them.
Yeah. And
People ain't no different. We are the fifth great ape, and all of our behaviors can be found in the other great apes. I wish we had more bonobo behaviors than chimp behaviors, though. If you know, then you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of fear-driven response
Yeah.
reactions, I
Yeah.
should say.
Fear, rage, anger.
Mhm.
Usually fear, then rage in that order. So, yes, Amelia, you scare people, certain people.
It can be fun.
It can be fun.
It can be fun.
So, the exercise that I gave you is built on a Sufi exercise and Gurdjieff's exercise. Both are involved in sensing the interior of the body. And the Sufi exercise starts with the breath. That's where that comes from.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
The exercise we are doing it for 20 minutes
Mhm.
a day. Is it prefer,
What was
sorry,
that, Mr. Q?
I want to say preferably.
Preferably.
Yeah,
That word. I have trouble saying it too.
to 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 have that tension, like the goal, like to have it more all the time, or 20 minutes
No,
a day
that's
is
not
enough.
the goal is to just do the exercise up to 20 minutes a day. That's the goal. There is no other goal than that. We're not trying to achieve anything outside of that. Just to be able to sit and be in your breath and put your attention on the inside of your body.
Yeah.
This is stage one. There are 3 stages to this exercise. But until you learn stage one, teaching people stage 2 and stage 3 does no good.
Pointless. If you're not doing one, there's no point in doing 2 and 3.
Yeah. And everybody's going to want to just jump right to stage 3 because they all think that they're that cool. And you're not that cool. None of you out there watching to this are that cool. If you were that cool, you wouldn't be bothering with watching us.
You're working on it though. You're
Yeah,
working on
everybody's working on
it.
it,
Yeah.
but you have to realize that do stage 1 first, even though stage 3 has all of the sparkly, shiny things that make all of the cool noises and everything. You can't have that without stage 1. You take all of the sparklies, and without stage 1, there's nothing to put the sparklies on. They fall on the floor. They get in the rug. You never get them all out. Anybody who spilt glitter in their rug knows what I'm talking about. It's exactly like that.
I love it when you get into the archaic technical terminology. It's very thrilling, you know.
Yeah, I like it too.
How long one should do the 20 minutes a day exercise to able to do the second stage?
Until you can do it comfortably for the whole 20 minutes and to have minimal attentional blinks. And you'll know what that's like. Do it once and notice how many times your attention goes away. See if you can reduce that by half. When you've reduced it by half, reduce it by half again. When you've reduced that by half, reduce that by half one more time. Then come talk to us.
Good questions.
Yeah,
Yes.
great questions. Unpleasant answers.
Yes, James.
Oh, I'm just this is taking it too far. You can actually get one of those little clicker things I've seen bouncers use at nightclubs
Yeah,
to counting up how many. So just you have that bopping away in your hand every time you detect a blink. You can actually really quantify this whole thing.
yeah, you could.
Yeah, you could do that. Yep.
And I would not say that that's a bad idea.
I'm
For
very
some
interested.
people, that's going to be incredibly useful.
For
Hmm.
some people, it might be a little bit of a tool for self-judgment.
Yeah,
Don't do that.
or a
That's
distraction.
yeah, but
But even if you get one of those and you completely fail, you still maybe can get a job as a bouncer or a doorman.
Ugh.
what was I gonna say? Of course there will be the people out there who are like, oh yeah, 20 minutes, I'm gonna do like an hour. Slow your roll.
Yeah.
There's no need for that. Just
No, especially in
relax.
the beginning. That's like, oh, I want to do 3 sets of dumbbell curls, right? I say, do 3 sets of 10. And you go, I can do 3 sets of 10. I had better do 20 sets of 10 because then I'll grow faster. And maybe you get all the way to 20 sets of 10, and the next day you cannot use your arms. And I'm laughing at you.
Mhm.
Nora's laughing at you. James is definitely laughing at you.
But yeah, I mean, then you convinced yourself probably that this is no fun, that it's really hard, that it's almost impossible. And that's hardly setting yourself up for
Yeah, set
success.
yourself up for success, not failure.
Yeah.
Yes, James.
I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the muscle building analogy is probably not a bad one. Years ago, and I wish I remembered the title, they showed a documentary on a young girl who was cutting out of anxiety, and they'd put her on 8 weeks of some kind of modified Vipassana exercises.
Mm.
Now, it was unpleasant for her because she became more acutely aware of the emotion she was trying to avoid. But by the end of that week, the cutting had basically stopped. Before they started, they did like an MRI or something, and they did another one at the end of the 8 weeks. And she'd actually grown neural connections in front, I think, the front left hemisphere. She'd
Mm.
literally built some cells up. She made
Yeah, the
some
brain
muscle
does that.
quite
And I
literally.
can tell you from personal experience and working with a couple of cutters that any number of exercises can bring them out of that. Yoga is good. Um, Swinging clubs is also good. Sometimes better because you can swing clubs violently. It's hard to do violent yoga.
Trying to picture violent yoga. But yeah, I get your
And
point.
funnily enough, we talk about hatha yoga. It's hatha, not hatha. Hatha yoga literally means forceful or violent yoga.
Mm.
So that's what it actually looks like. Ow. Anyway, so this is the simple thing that we wanted to talk about tonight. The core of this is the practice itself. All of the philosophy around it is just frosting on the cake, things to think about. It is a technique that has been used for 1,000 years in one form or another, probably longer than that, but I can only date it back about 1,000 years. And the reason that it's stuck around is because it works. And it is the very first step to true self-observation. Can't emphasize that enough. You can't do real self-observation unless you can pay attention. And it literally is paying attention. It's like you're putting down dollars. Think of it, you go to a strip club, right? And you want the attention of the girl dancing, you have money. Stuff the money in her undies and she stays around and attends to you. Her focus is on you. I don't know what brought that up, but
It's a very Eid appropriate,
yeah, well, I don't
very
care
Eid
because it's
appropriate.
very, very true. So this is like that. You have to pay for your attention. You have to pay for that experience of attending to something. And it literally costs you energy. If you don't have any energy, you cannot work at being attentive.
Have a snack,
Have a
take a
snack.
nap, have
Yeah,
a
take
little
care of
water,
yourself.
then sit down and do this practice. Maybe go for a walk, get the blood flowing.
And that's what we have to talk about tonight.
Yeah,
Floor is open for any questions, thoughts, answers.
yeah, I wouldn't mind hearing from people who haven't had the chance to chime in yet.
Yeah, just before that,
Sure.
I'll chime in that I have noticed that I have attention blinks, which is a term that I wasn't familiar with. But when I do my regular practice, sometimes I'll zone out for 10 minutes or so. And it's something I've been paying attention to and trying to
Yeah.
but it's a definitely real phenomenon. And it's actually rather comforting to hear that you still have them.
Oh, yeah. I don't know anybody who doesn't have them. My teacher had them from time to time. Not often, but he had them. And he didn't feel bad about that.
Yeah, I just sort of pick up the pieces and carry on.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's all you can really do.
Yeah.
The one thing you don't want to do is beat yourself up over it, because that is bad.
Then you really lose the thread. James says, Adyashanti says he still has Velcro thoughts, as he calls them, but they no longer fascinate him. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
feeling bad about them, being like fascinated by them, those are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. And I can relate to that. But
Hmm.
like I said, I have never met anyone who is in a full state of attention without interruption for as long as they are awake. Never met that person. And I've hung out with sadhus and gurus and sheikhs and murshids and grand sheikhs and all of these weird people. And you can tell when somebody blinks. Once you learn, it's obvious. So here's what I want everybody to do. If you made it this far, here's your challenge. Do this exercise for as long as you are comfortable doing it, whether it's 2 minutes or 20 minutes. I don't care. And then tell us in the comment how it went. What went well for you? What got in your way? What are you going to do differently the next time? What are you going to do the same at the next time? That's even more interesting. What really worked for you in doing this? I I tossed down the gauntlet.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do want to hear from people about these things because maybe you have some interesting things that other people might benefit from hearing about.
Yeah, we can only benefit from real conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll even contribute. Yeah, I'll make a point of doing this exercise every day this week for 20 minutes, see what comes out of it.
Yeah. Now that's pretty much all I got for today. Noor?
I got nothing to add except give it a shot. Don't beat yourself up. Don't get lost in the woods. Give yourself that 20 or 2 minutes or somewhere in between. But I recommend that you pick a time, pick an amount of time so that you can hold yourself accountable for that
Yeah,
amount of
that's the
time.
intention part.
Yeah.
Set a timer if you want.
Yeah. Yeah. Insight timer, they're nice little chimes or whatever.
Yeah. Or a doorbell timer. I like those too.
Yeah. And I think it's important to have that set time because it is so easy for you to be like, oh, 2 minutes in, this is too hard. I don't really want to do the full 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. But there is a bit of a stretch going on here, just with any kind of workout. If you haven't been doing something for a while, you're going to have to warm up to it.
You
And
know
you're
who
going to
we
have
haven't
to,
heard from? I just realized.
what's that?
Alka,
Alka, what are
you've
your
been so
thoughts?
quiet. Talk to us.
Well, it's the change of time that is screwing up with me.
Yeah, I bet.
I was
How
up
long?
at 7 and then came at 7:30.
Do you
Not
guys
being
have a time
quiet.
change too?
No, you guys have time change, but then the time changes for me too,
Yeah,
right? Like,
it's brutal.
and I
Everybody hates it.
half an hour off thing. Ugh. Um, yeah, but I mean, we've been practicing this for almost years, and I was enjoying this practice all the time. Like, ever since you started doing this, I was enjoying this practice.
Yeah, me
Uh,
too.
yeah, so I do it every time, every morning I get up, I do this by default, before I even come out of bed to do anything else. So,
Yeah. I have trouble
and
doing that. If I try and do it while I'm still laying in bed, I'll fall back asleep.
Yeah, me too.
I have to actually
that's
sit
interesting.
up.
Good for you, Alka. I'm glad that you can.
Yeah, in fact, it's something very interesting. You said that. Like, for me, this exercise never puts me to sleep because from the very beginning, I made this intention that this exercise is not for my sleep.
Mhm.
So, like in the night, I cannot do this and go to sleep. Like I'm awake. But it does help me a lot now to um, see where my body is hurting and release that pain. It's when I do this, the present moment, or looking at my inward. It's very interesting how I can completely release the pain in my body anywhere. Uh, but no, it does not put me to sleep. Like even to go to bed, I cannot go to sleep.
I'm impressed. I get really
Yeah.
relaxed, and if my body thinks laying back means sleeping.
Oh. But I think it is only for one reason that I never take all my practices for sleep. There are some practices that are for sleep only, but not like if this one is not for my sleep, so I don't go to sleep. So that kind of a thing,
Works
if
for
it
me.
helps. Yeah.
Thanks, Alka. Um, hmm. How about you, Jill? I don't want to pull you in if you don't have anything to share, but if you do, you are very welcome to. Right. Yeah, how about you, Nancy?
Um, it's all very reasonable. I've been trying, mostly staying aware of my breath and my hands, and you know, my hands seem interesting enough, but I don't stay with them very long. So it's a thing to practice.
Yep. Thanks, Nancy. How about you, Rat? You got any thoughts? How about you, Kay? I know they'll be chiming in via chat. So Kay says, I am definitely practicing it this week. Yay. Rat says, sparklies, even Buddhas are blinks. Yes.
Yes.
Yep. So on that note, I have nothing else to add except to encourage any and all of us to give it a shot this week.
Yeah, and to tell us about it in the comments.
That's the other nice part, in the comments. And as I said, I am committing to doing the same. I will come and chime in a week in the comments.
I'm
And
actually going to chat to a few bouncer friends and see about getting one of these little handheld clicker things.
Oh, dude, you can order those for a couple of bucks off of Amazon or go to any decent stationery store and they'll have them.
Yeah, stationery store or sports store.
Sports store too, yeah.
Yeah, but that's a good idea. I might I'll try it both ways, with and without, see how I think it feels. Okay, I'm good. What about you, Mushtaq?
I'm good.
All right.
Let me
Shall
flip
we?
everything over to Brady Brunch view. Voila.
All right. Well, it's so good to have the bunch of you here. Thanks for hanging out with us, and hopefully you are encouraged to try this out if you haven't been doing it for some time already. And even if you have, maybe it's time to revisit it with a bit more intentionality and regularity. That's the thing for me, regularity. So, without further ado, we can wave to each other and wave to everyone watching on the replay.
Folks.
We'll get together again next week. Take care. Bye.
Bye.